The blinking cursor mocked me. I stared at the computer screen, the words swimming before my eyes. Another late night, another mountain of code to conquer. Being a software architect in Seattle wasn't glamorous, but it was my life, my passion. Or at least it used to be. My name is Corbin, and until a few weeks ago I thought I had it all. A beautiful home overlooking Puget Sound, a challenging career, and a wife, Wren, who I adored. We'd been married for 7 years, a whirlwind romance that started in a coffee shop downtown. She was an artist, vibrant and full of life, everything I wasn't. I was the steady, reliable one, she was the spark. We balanced each other perfectly, or so I thought. The first crack in our seemingly perfect facade appeared subtly. Wren started staying late at her studio, a co-op space she shared with other local artists. She was working on a new exhibition, she explained, a series of abstract paintings inspired by the city's skyline. I understood the demands of creative work, the need for solitude and focus. I didn't question it, not at first. Then came the phone calls. Late-night calls that she'd answer in hushed tones, stepping out onto the balcony, claiming it was her agent or a potential buyer. I'd try to catch snippets of the conversation, but she'd always cut it short, returning with a strained smile and a vague explanation. My gut started churning. I'm not a jealous man by nature, but something felt off. It was more than just the late nights and the secretive phone calls. It was a distance that had grown between us, a subtle shift in her demeanor. She seemed preoccupied, less engaged, like her mind was somewhere else. One evening, while Wren was at her studio, I decided to surprise her with dinner. I picked up her favorite Thai takeout and drove downtown, excitement bubbling inside me. I hadn't seen her properly in days, and I missed her terribly. The co-op was a sprawling warehouse, converted into individual studios. I found Wren's space easily enough, tucked away in a corner. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hallway. I pushed it open gently, calling out her name. The scene that unfolded before me shattered my world. Wren wasn't alone. She was locked in a passionate embrace with a man I'd never seen before. His back was to me, but I recognized the shock of red hair, the expensive leather jacket. They were kissing, lost in their own world, oblivious to my presence. The takeout containers slipped from my hands, crashing to the floor. The sound jolted them apart. Wren's face drained of color, her eyes widening in horror. The man turned around, a smirk playing on his lips. He was handsome in a rugged, arrogant way. He looked like he'd stepped out of a whiskey advertisement. "Corbin," Wren stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "It's not what you think, really, because it looks exactly like what I think," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "Who is this?" Wren hesitated, her eyes darting between me and the man. This is Finley. He's helping me with the exhibition." Finley stepped forward, extending his hand. "Nice to meet you, Corbin. Wren has told me so much about you." I stared at his outstretched hand, refusing to take it. "Get out," I said, my voice low and menacing. "Get out now before I do something I regret." Finley's smirk widened. "Don't let me interrupt," he said, backing away slowly. "We were just discussing the finer points of art." He sauntered out of the studio, leaving me alone with Wren. The silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the sound of my ragged breathing. "How could you?" I asked, my voice cracking. "How could you do this to me?" Wren started to cry, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Corbin," she sobbed. "It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It just happened," I repeated, incredulous. "You were kissing him, Wren. That doesn't just happen." I know," she wailed. "I've been so confused lately. I haven't been happy. I felt like we were drifting apart, I shouted. "Because you were too busy screwing this guy behind my back." The words hung in the air, raw and ugly. I couldn't believe this was happening. My wife, the woman I loved, was standing in front of me, admitting to cheating on me with some arrogant stranger. I turned and walked out of the studio, leaving Wren sobbing in the wreckage of our marriage. I drove home in a daze, the city lights blurring through my tears. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, like my heart had been ripped out of my chest. The next few weeks were a blur of anger, pain, and disbelief. I moved into the spare bedroom, unable to bear the thought of sleeping next to Wren. We barely spoke, the silence between us thick with resentment and regret. I tried to understand what had gone wrong. Had I been so focused on my career that I'd neglected her? Had I failed to see the signs of her unhappiness? I replayed our marriage in my mind, searching for clues, for answers. But the truth was, I didn't know. I thought we were happy. I thought we were in love. I thought we had a future together. Wren eventually confessed that the affair had been going on for months. Finley was a wealthy art collector, a patron of the co-op. He'd showered her with attention, praised her work, and made her feel alive in a way that I apparently hadn't. He'd even promised to fund her next exhibition, a dream she'd been chasing for years. The more I learned, the angrier I became. It wasn't just about the sex, it was about the betrayal, the lies, the manipulation. She'd used me, she'd lied to me, she'd risked everything we had for some fleeting moment of excitement. I decided I couldn't stay. I couldn't live in the same house with her knowing what she'd done. I filed for divorce. Wren didn't fight it. She seemed almost relieved, like she'd been waiting for me to make the decision. The divorce was messy and painful. We had to divide our assets, sell the house, and disentangle our lives. It felt like cutting off a limb, a slow, agonizing process. I lost friends, I lost my sense of security, I lost the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. I threw myself into my work, burying my emotions in lines of code. I worked late, I skipped meals, I barely slept. I was determined to rebuild my life, to prove that I could survive this betrayal. One day, a few months after the divorce was finalized, I received an email from an unknown address. The subject line read, "Finley." Intrigued, I opened the email. It was a message from a woman named Imogen. She claimed to be Finley's former business partner. She'd seen the news about my divorce and felt compelled to reach out. "Finley is not who he seems," she wrote. "He's a con artist, a manipulator. He uses his wealth and charm to take advantage of people, especially women. He's ruined countless lives." Imogen went on to detail Finley's shady business dealings, his fraudulent investments, his history of exploiting artists. She claimed he'd promised to fund Wren's exhibition, but it was all a lie. He had no intention of following through. I felt a surge of anger, hotter and more intense than anything I'd felt before. Wren had been seduced by a liar, a cheat, a predator. He'd preyed on her vulnerability, exploited her dreams, and destroyed our marriage in the process. I contacted Imogen and we met for coffee. She was a sharp, intelligent woman with a steely determination in her eyes. She'd been burned by Finley herself and was determined to bring him down. Together, we hatched a plan. We gathered evidence of Finley's fraudulent activities, his lies, and his manipulations. We contacted the authorities and presented them with our case. The investigation took months, but eventually the truth came out. Finley was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. His reputation was shattered, his assets were seized, and he was facing a long prison sentence. Wren was devastated. She'd been living in a fool's paradise, believing Finley's lies and ignoring the warning signs. She lost everything: her marriage, her reputation, and her chance at a successful exhibition. She reached out to me, begging for forgiveness. She claimed she'd been blinded by his charm and his promises, that she never truly loved him. She said she regretted everything she'd done. I listened to her apology, but I couldn't forgive her. The pain was too deep, the betrayal too profound. I couldn't forget the image of her kissing Finley, the lies she'd told, the damage she'd inflicted. I told her that I wished her well, but that I couldn't be a part of her life anymore. I needed to move on, to heal, to rebuild my own future. I sold our house in Seattle and moved to Portland, seeking a fresh start. I found a new job, a new apartment, and a new sense of purpose. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I learned a lot from that experience. I learned that love can be blind, that betrayal can be devastating, and that forgiveness can be impossible. But I also learned that I am stronger than I thought, that I can survive anything, and that I deserve to be happy. I don't know what the future holds, but I am optimistic. I am open to love again, but I will be more cautious, more discerning. I will never forget what happened, but I will not let it define me. I am Corbin, and I am a survivor.